how to play. He must actually be good at listening to me. All of these are standards and part of your bucket list. But the longer that list is, the less likely it is that you would find someone. There is an inverse correlation between the length of your standards and your list and the likelihood of meeting someone. So, ladies, I'm going to say something that, if you can extract the wisdom hidden in that word, it becomes very easy to achieve your desires. I heard someone once say something, and this is where I hung on to this particular word, two words. The question was asked, what is the key to a successful relationship? And the person said, low expectations. And at the time, I could not understand why low expectations would be the key to a successful relationship until I started to think a lot closely as to what that meant. I then realized that, unfortunately, most people start off with high expectations. And wherever you have high expectations, there will be disappointments because we're human beings. Wherever there are disappointments, it often leads to distrust. It leads to the dissolution of the relationship or even divorce. So if you want to have long-lasting relationship, set your standards low. Now that doesn't mean you don't hold people to high standards. No, it simply means you don't make your high standards a prerequisite to all your interactions with people. Rather than judge people based on the superficial physical attributes, you start with things that are more meaningful. Separate your standards and your bucket list into what I call two areas: your needs and your wants. Ladies, most of you know what you want. You do not know what you need. And in my opinion, what women really need usually represents about between 10 and 15% of their entire bucket list or standards. You have to begin with the basics. Basics. Is he a man of character? Is he a man of principle? Does he have integrity? Is he hardworking? Does he provide? Can he provide? Can he protect? Before you go into the rest, the whole idea of this Disney fantasy, fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast love story is a 21st century concept. Prior to the 19th century, men were not expected to be good looking. Men were not expected to be attractive. Men were expected to be hardworking, dependable, of good character, have the right value systems, have the right foundation, formal training or informal training from their parents. This whole concept of the physical attributes of men is a new concept. He has to have six packs. He has to have big shoulders, broad chest, thick calves. He must be 6 feet tall. All of this is all new modern dating concepts. And if you look at most women's bucket list or their standards, most of the time it's usually physical attributes. Some of the time it's financial attributes. Seldom do women ask a simple question: is he a good man? So I would simply say be realistic about your expectations. And number 4, be wise and seek good counsel. Seek good counsel. Wisdom is something that most of us aspire to have. Every day we work hard. we fall short. But what some of us have learned is that it is better to surround yourself with people who are wise and people who can counsel you than to be the one who is wise, because you can leverage the experience of other people. And women, from my experience, young women generally have very little good counsel. They don't have friends around them or people around them that can tell them the truth. They have friends. Now, a friend is someone who loves you just the way you are and will always put the relationship first rather than offend your feelings. A mentor, a counselor, is someone who loves you too much to leave you the way you are and cares not much about your feelings and will not put the relationship before the truth. So they will tell you what needs to be said, even at the risk of the relationship or losing you as a client. Their responsibility is your well-being. And so it's important to have people around you who can be very honest with you. I would say a few things that will not be necessarily consistent with what most people think. I think family are often one of the worst counsels you can have, because your family has seen you grow. They have their biases. Obviously, you're always going to be daddy's daughter, so they cannot be objective. They cannot be objective. They come to the conversation with priors. It's always important to get people around you who can be independent, who are not emotionally connected to you, people who, by emotionally, I'm referring to in your decision-making process for a spouse, people who are not sexually attracted to you, and maybe not financially dependent on you, because they can be very honest. Now, let me share perhaps an example of how this works. Some time ago, I had an interesting conversation with someone in a public space, in a public space, shared space, and it was a lady, a very attractive lady, but she was acting inappropriately. It happened a few times. The first time I ignored it. The second time, on a different day, she came up again and I ignored her. And the third time, I corrected her. And I could tell from the look on her face that it was the first time, perhaps, that she had ever been corrected. Obviously, being a very, very attractive woman, she was used to being desired by everyone. And during the conversation, she asked me an important question. She said, "How do I know you're right? You know, what you've said." She said, "Thank you, but how do I know you're right?" I said, "Well, I have no reason to lie to you. And secondly, and even most importantly, I am not sexually attracted to you, and I have no intentions of having any relationships with you. And therefore, I can speak to you with love, but I can stay friendly, but I can be firm in my sharing of my observations of how I have experienced you and perhaps what you need to change." And she left. And it wasn't a few days afterwards I saw her again, and you could tell that she was doing everything she could to get my attention. She was hovering around me. I'm not saying this that it was something I enjoyed from the interaction per se, because in many ways I was rebuking her for her ways, to saying, "Listen, you should be of better character. This is not of you. You should hold yourself to higher standards. You cannot behave like this." But it felt as though it was the first time, and she acknowledged it was the first time, that a man who was older than her, who was not attracted to her, and who was not seeking to be sexually active with her, was being honest. And she thanked me for that. Now, she was raised in a in a single parent family. So she never heard a man speak very firmly, respectfully, but very directly, which I did. Now, why do I bring this story into this conversation? She later apologized and said she had taken some time to reflect and that she could see the value of the advice I was giving her. That is good counsel. Not everyone has that because, quite frankly, it's not my responsibility to go around telling people what they should do. But sometimes people need to hear how other people experience them so that they can course correct and make changes. And obviously, not every opinion is relevant, myself inclusive. So seeking good counsel is important. If you're dating, the mistake most young women make is that they start dating someone and they keep it as a private affair until it's too late. When you start dating someone, you should consider yourself lucky to have people around you who care about you. And what you should do is very early, put the man on the witness box. Bring him around your friends, bring him around your family. Let your family see him, interview him, question him, test him. Try to see if his stories are consistent. Because some men are very, very good at lying. A man that you're emotionally and sexually involved with can easily deceive you. But if he's not sexually involved with someone else, he can't deceive them. So take him around your male friends. Let your male friends ask him questions, tough questions. Take him around your family. Let your parents ask him tough questions. Do not wait until you believe the relationship is of a mature phase. No. From the first week, once you've gone past the introduction phase and you've gone into the conversation phase, just as you are about to begin your intimacy or sexual phase, get him around your friends. Good men can spot liars from a distance. You'll be stunned at how many times I've said to women, he is the good guy. He, on the other hand, will leave you within a month and a half. And surely, to my word, they make their choices and they bear their consequences. Good men can always spot. It's the same way as the way you catch a thief is to send another thief. The way good men can find and identify good eggs from bad eggs is because they have the experience, or they have studied the game, they've been around men, they know how men think, they have friends, and so they can say to you very, very quickly that the intentions of Mr. A doesn't seem to be consistent with what you want, my friend. But the intentions of Mr. B, on face value, seems to be worthy of consideration. So keep that in mind. Number 5, apply the process of inversion. This is a strategy I use for most of my decision making in all parts of my life. Powerful, powerful stuff. What is inversion? Inversion is simply the process whereby you turn things upside down. So for example, if I say, how do I destroy the United Kingdom? That's a question. And I can list all of the answers. If I invert all of the answers, I get the answer to a different question, which is, how do I strengthen the United Kingdom? And how do I preserve, protect the United Kingdom? So in many ways, if you're asking the question, how do I make a relationship successful? If you invert that question and make a list of all the things that you can do to jeopardize and make your relationship fail, invert that. And if you did the inverted actions, or if you avoided doing the listed actions, you get success. Simply begin with the end in mind and walk backwards. So in a relationship, question, okay, how do I start with the process of inversion? Let's reverse that. How do I guarantee myself that I will not be married, that I will be a femcell where men will not desire me, they will not want me, and I'll be alone, and I probably will end up living the latter part of my life alone? Step one, start with your S&V. Don't care about your weight. Eat yourself into a size 20. Put on so much weight. Put on so much makeup. Have multiple sex partners. Get pregnant very early. When you add up all these very negative things you can do, you find actually that if you did the opposite, stay healthy, take yourself, treat yourself like the beauty and the princess that you are. Don't have multiple sexual partners. Stay feminine. Learn your traditional skill sets from your parents. Learn how to be a traditional wife, even if you choose not to be one, but learn the skill sets. Learn how to speak in public. Learn how to walk in public. Learn etiquettes that a woman should have. Learn how to use your voice, your pitch, sound of your voice, your tone. Learn how to control your emotions. Learn how to interact with people. Learn how to host people. By doing all of those, you increase the likelihood that you would achieve what you want, which is success in your dating experiences. Number 6 is have a strategy. Don't rely on hope. Most ladies who date rely on hope. They say, we'll see what happens. I've only started dating him. I've only dated him for 2 months, but let's see. That is relying on hope. You need a strategy. You need a strategy. You need a process of making decisions. You need a process of eliminating potential suitors. You need a process of qualifying men. You need a process of identifying the good one. You need a process of testing the good ones. Then you need a process of selecting the right ones. And then you need a process of keeping, once you've started dating, keeping the good men. Finding a man is easy. Finding a man to have sex with is less easy. Finding a man that you accept as a spouse is even less easier. It gets harder. So recognize that a strategy is something you would need. And even not just a strategy, you need a tactical approach to dating. Number 7, be willing to negotiate. I wish I had the time to talk about negotiation, because I think so much can be learned from this. Now, let me give you a good example. 2 people meet each other. Let's say Amy and Michael. Amy is 31. Michael is 42. Amy wants to have 2 kids. Michael wants to have 4 kids. The art of negotiation begins. She has to convince him, talk to him, so that both of them can come to an agreement where both parties are happy. Part of that negotiation, rather than she walk away and say, well, he wants 4 kids, then I'm not for him. She can convince him to come down to 3, and they can settle at 3. On the other hand, Amy, 31, wants to have a family. Michael does not want to be married. She meets Michael. The idea is not to try and negotiate with him to change. The idea is to negotiate with him in such a way that what he chooses is what he wants. So as part of the negotiation, she can start to go into conversations as to what would make him reconsider his position. You're not relying on hope. You're not trying to change him. You're trying to negotiate. What is the reason why you've never considered having a family? Okay, it could be trauma. So one of the negotiation tactics could be to join him and go for a counseling session. So he actually gets therapy. So he gets a psychologist, a psychiatrist to sit down with him one-to-one so that he can understand where his fears are coming from. So, because he could be motivated by fear. That is negotiation. I'll be willing to support you in you seeing someone so that we can understand if perhaps this is maybe a childhood trauma, fear that you have, that both of us can work on to ensure that I provide you with enough certainty that making a decision to take me as a partner and a wife will be a fulfilling choice. That's negotiation. And number 8, and I conclude. Do the numbers. Do the numbers. Let me do this, conclude this very quickly. Rather, let me bring back this one. How does the numbers work? Success is a numbers game. Wealth is a numbers game. Prosperity is a numbers game. Happiness is a numbers game. The numbers never lie. I'm going to use London, and I'm going to contrast London with, let's say, Cardiff. Cardiff is a part of Wales. London is a part of England. Both are in the United Kingdom. In London, we have the highest population in the country, roughly 9.7 million. In Cardiff, now I could be wrong here, but in Cardiff, as the last I checked, the population of Cardiff, I think, is somewhere in the region of between 500,000 and I think 750,000. Now I could be wrong, and forgive me if I am, but I could be wrong. I spent some time in Cardiff. I lived in a smaller county right next to Cardiff, and I used to have back in the day I used to have all the data. I knew where things, the population, demographics, and all of that were. For some reason, I haven't kept track lately. But that's besides the point. In any case, let's go with 500 for now. What you find is, if Cardiff is 500,000 and London is roughly close to 10 million, you can see a huge disparity. You're looking at roughly 20x in difference. That is huge. What that means is that, all things considered, assuming that there is an equal proportion of men to women, for now, just for this sake, is that for every one man in Cardiff, there are 20 men in London. Once you adjust for age, marriageability, preferences, taste, choices of partners, what you find is that women, if you're looking to be seen and if you're looking to present yourself to eligible men, you have to go where the men are. So as part of the numbers, ladies, stop assuming casually that you will be seen. Sometimes you have to be proactive. And that means, as part of your strategy, which I refer to as point number 6, you need to have a way of analyzing the numbers to ensure that your strategy is working. I've recommended to some people that they need to leave where they are and move to a different city, a bigger city, where you have more of a larger pool of eligible bachelors and men, to leave a location, to change a profession. There are people who work different types of jobs, and they are exposed primarily to certain groups of people. Some of these people work different hours of the day. So, for example, people work night shifts, and automatically what that means is that during the night when you go to work, people are sleeping. When you're returning from work, people are going to work. So you're never really crossing paths with people. And therefore, perhaps if you changed your work routine to give yourself more of a higher chance. And the reason for doing the numbers is because as you approach 35, your sense of urgency should be very, very, very high. You should be a lot more urgent. You should be working hard, as in you should be struggling to just sit down and do nothing. You should be working very hard. The younger you are, the more time you have. The older you are, the more urgent you must be in your process. So, 8 strategies that can be applied by anyone. And I hope that's been useful.